Here's my poor old ute. This was my daily driver for a few years. I'm only the third owner from new, but since it's been sitting around, it's developed some rust. So it's not bad. It's just the guards and the sills. The rest of the cab is really good. So I thought we could take the guard off and fix up this rust. So I've got it on charge because it hasn't been started for a while, and hopefully there's no rats inside it. Oh, there has been, little buggers. See, they chew the macadamia nuts. So there's my chain steering wheel and my chain gear stick because I can't help myself. I actually made this whole steering wheel. It's the boss kit, so I bought one, but the steering wheel itself I made. So yeah, we might fix her up. Hey, welcome to Beginning Fabrication episode 14. This episode will be the one that was suggested to me by Josh Seward. I think I've said his name right. He asked about showing a rust repair and making sure that you get all the rust and that you don't get issues later on. So I've started doing a bit. So it's not so much about making the panel itself that I'm repairing. It's more to do with just knowing to cut out a little bit more than you need to. So hopefully it'll make sense as you see it, and enjoy the show. Cheers. So I've got the old beast over into the carport. So now I can start pulling this guard off. Hopefully it won't be too much of a pain in the bum. So let's get cracking. Well, as usual, when you're pulling stuff apart that's rusty, you always end up finding all the crusty bits. So the stupid rats have been having fun in here. That's probably why it's rusted out, to be honest, because it wasn't as rusty when I was driving it every day. Well, surprisingly that came off pretty darn easily. So, got all your usual rat's nest crap inside. And even the bottom of the A-pillar. I know it's got some rust, but I actually thought it was going to be worse. So, pretty happy about that. So this is our project, making a new guard bottom and determining how much to cut out, and we're also going to just clean up all of this stuff. There's all of this goo, and same with on here. Someone might have even been Mitsubishi, I don't know, glued all of the top of the guard on. So we're going to get rid of that. Looks like someone's welded up an aerial at some stage. I don't know, I think it can stay. I'll just clean all the surface rust. Oh, this thing used to have stripes on it. Fancy. Alright, well I'm going to clean up all this mess out here, and then we'll get started on making a new piece for this guard. So here's our lovely panel. I'm just going to grab my jigsaw. So it's not in bad condition for its age. It's like an 83 model or something, this thing. So what I first do is just have a quick look at the outside. And I don't know if my camera can pick it up, but even though it looks like that's the last of the rust, there's another bit here I just can't quite focus it, but I can see like a, you know when you get rust you get these funny lumps in the paint. There is actually some more of that up to here. You can just see that line there. So that would be my absolute top visible mark from the outside. So what I do is I just mark, where am I? Oh man, I'm hopeless at doing this with one hand trying to film. I'm just going to mark around so when I roll this over I can see how accurate that is. And then also on the lip here, obviously it's got some issues because it had a stupid mud flap on it. We've got rust up to there, which is pretty much in line, I guess, with my first mark. Probably even if I go up a bit higher I can get rid of that hole. So that's the outside mark, and the next thing I need to do is flip him over and then just have a look on the inside and see how the rust is. So I'm just going to stop you so I can put the flash on, because I don't think I can do it when it's going. Hang on a sec. Alright, so you can see in this seam there's more rust, and that's probably close to where it was on the other side, and then for inches and inches it's quite good. So I'd still mark it there, and then let's just see. Okay, so there's my mark from the outside. So it's a little, only a tiny bit worse on the inside than the outside, but I'm still going to come up an inch, because rust, I just hate it. And if you're going to go to the effort of chopping up a car to fix it, you may as well fix it properly. You know, I've known people that'll do a rust repair just from the outside from this point, just because they think that's the worst of it. But then you look at what's above it, it's not going to last long. So I'll do the same. I'll do a bit of a transfer so I can mark the top, and then we can start making some measurements. And also I noticed on the front here that there's a bit of rust. I'll see how I go, if I can be bothered to fix that. Because this is my own car, I tend to not have that much time to spend on my own stuff. Another little bit there where it had like a bonnet rubber, like a support rubber. But for the sake of this example, I don't mind using my own car, because I don't really have any jobs in here that are just a little guard repair like this. So we'll actually the next thing I need to do is just find that mark again that I put on here, which is about there. Yeah, so I went up an inch or so it's pretty close to what I did on the outside. So now I'm just going to get some masking tape and we'll start measuring. So I've set up the first of my little measurements, and it's just using the old tape trick. So I've got a line in there for the bottom fold. Got a line here because there is a slight crease, like the factory swage line through there. I don't know if you can really see it, but it's there. It's just a subtle one. And then I've marked the top. So this piece of tape here I only put on as a rough line. I just did an eyeball parallel with the badges because I know they usually fairly straight. So I've just run that across purely for being able to get this measurement. So now I'll stick that onto a piece of metal so I can actually measure it. And then the next measurement I need, even though I'm going to have to do some guessing, because I'm missing a whole corner, but I can look at the shape of the car and see if that goes straight or if it keeps coming back. But I need to measure, so from this corner in thin air, width-wise I can't just measure there because obviously it keeps coming outwards. So I need to measure from here, including that 15mm lip, to there wide. And I'll show you how I do things like that in a minute. So like that other time when we did the masking tape measuring trick, I've just laid it out on some steel. Generally with guard bottoms, I just go with 20mm, unless it's excessively more. 20mm always seems to be my go-to measurement for things like that. Same as wheel arch returns always end up being 15mm, just because my pea-brain can remember that. So I've marked out the lines that I put on, which is the fold at the bottom, the little slight swage line crease in the centre, and then the top. And then I've measured what these distances are, so 149 and 130. And so now the next measurement I need to get, I'm actually going to use, I reckon it'll stay there for now. I'm going to use this fella, and I'm just going to go off these badges. Now if you don't have something like a badge to go off, you can roughly draw in off eyeballing the bottom. Basically all I want to do is just get a somewhat vertical line, so then I can measure each side of it to find out how wide this needs to be. So I'll get my line on and then I'll show you what I mean. Okay, so using my set square off the badges, I've just drawn myself a line which is pretty much right actually, because I eyeballed it from the bottom as well. And so now that I've got that purely as a reference point, I can measure from the center line. Actually I'm going to use tape to measure this anyway, to take in that flare, because there's like a flare in the wheel arch there. But for the sake of this argument, let's say it was flat, and so I can put that right on my line, measure that and say it's about 142, and then I've got plus 15. I'll just put that on there for myself so I don't forget to add that on. So from 142 it would be 157, and so if that was the number, I'd just write 157 to there. Again, it's just to idiot proof myself really, because there's so many jobs on the go at once, depending on my state of mind or what time of day it is. If it's time to pack up, when I come in the next time to work on it, I might have forgotten that number. So just by writing all this down on the job itself, or even just on the metal you're working with, for me anyway, it helps me a lot. So my guesstimate of this one would be, it'll be around 100. But what I'm going to do, this has got a folded edge on it anyway, so I'm going to do plus 10, because it's only a small lip. And the good thing about that is, it means I can give myself extra, and then I can just trim it off at the end. But I have a feeling, judging by the way this line comes down, that it's going to basically follow this. It's not going to be on that angle anymore. But let's just go and have a quick sticky beak at the car. Mint Monaro. I assume you guys have all seen this beastie. It's a cool old unit. There's my Japanese dak. Okay, so yeah, see that sill, that's just pretty much a right angle, so it's coming straight down, fairly much straight down like that. So I'm just going to assume that it's, well, I'm not going to assume, I'm going to make it so that it's around that 100mm mark, plus the 10mm for the lip. Excuse excuse me walking you around. It's a lot easier for me to edit when I don't have so many clips to cut together, because I'm a bit of a dumbass when it comes to editing, and I'm also lazy. So yeah, I reckon 100mm spot on for that. So I don't actually have anywhere to write 100mm, so I'm just going to write it. That was bloody clever. Sorry about that. So I'm just going to write 100 and then plus 10. I should have just written 110, shouldn't I? Let's do that. There we go. So now I've got my measurements. I can cut a piece of metal. Actually, I guess what I'll do first, which is probably what I'd suggest to everyone to do, is now that we know sort of where we're going to be working, I'm just going to sand that paint off around this area. I'm more worried about above this line, because that's the part we're going to keep. But I've just put that in there so I know where to sand. And we'll just make sure that the metal inside here looks nice and silver. And then I'll cut a piece of metal. And we're back. So sanded that off, that's all nice and clean. You can see even the rusty side of it, it's perfect. So I've just put my line back on. And how I got my line was just by sticking this back on. I just stuck that first piece, lined it up with the swage line in the bottom, and then put the tape on. So now I've got my tape for this measurement. I don't know if you can see how much that flares up. So quite hard to measure properly with a ruler. So just out of habit, I've marked like the radius and the top of this wheel arch, but for this I don't need it. That'll come later. So all I need is that mark there. So I'll stick that on the bit of metal and get my measurements. Alright, so there's that's going to be the new bottom of this guard. So there's a couple of different ways you can go about it. One is to make a cardboard template of the face of this piece, and then you can just transfer it onto that. What I'm going to do is just get the basic shape, this curve, that little line and this fold at the bottom into place first, and then I'll worry about getting the shape right. Alright, so I've done a bit of a basic shape up of this panel. You can see it's sitting on there pretty well enough for now. I can't obviously go over the whole thing because this flare juts out, so I'm just shaping it off the main part of the flat section for now. But for the sake of doing this example, I'll do a cardboard template of this as well, and we can transfer it onto this piece. I think I found about the mangiest piece of cardboard I could have found, so just going to lie it out there roughly and give it a trim just so I'm not working with such a huge piece. Not a problem I normally ever have to worry about. Let's talk about that. Okay. Probably should have got a piece that didn't have a tear in it, but we can fix that. Normally if there's a tear on the edge, I just tape it over so it's half hanging off, and then just fold it over so that the tear's supported. Go on a bit curiosity show on it. There we go, so that's the tear sorted out. So I know there's going to be the fold at the bottom, so I'm just going to fold the cardboard so that it'll sit on the guard a bit easier. Then we just want to make sure we've got enough coverage. Now I think that's the tape there. I'm just going to trim the top off as well. Because it does make it a bit easier if you can work with a smaller piece, I find. Right. Now obviously with this missing the bottom corner, there's going to be a little bit of improvisation. So that doesn't really matter. You can find the edge just by folding it. Just get as much information as we can off what we've got. So we know once it gets to there, it actually comes down straight. So I'm just going to roughly do a straight line. Because this is only a cardboard template, it's not like we can't adjust it if we need to. So I'll get that one there. Right. So I'm going to cut that now. This must be really exciting for you guys watching me doing craft work. Maybe next episode we can do some knitting or something. No, we won't do that. That takes skill. I haven't got any of that. Now, just going to curve this a bit. Just on the panel stand. Really should have started with a better bit of... No, that's not helping me. Alright, I'm just going to move everything for a sec. Because by me having this busted piece on the on the table, where are we? It was pushing it all out of whack. Okay, let's dusting up a bit. Alright, let's start that bit again. I'll edit that out. Funny thing is, they will always take a little bit of time with these templates, because if it's what you're basing your whole repair on, it needs to be pretty accurate. Otherwise there's not really much point in doing them. So okay, starting to get a bit better. So now I'm actually going to tape this onto the guard with a couple of bits of tape, because I'm going to need to do a bit of pushing and prodding to get it to go over that flare. So I'll get that sitting on there. One piece along the top, a couple along the side. Now the bottom doesn't matter if it hangs out, because what we're going to do is sort of ramp it up over that flare. You can't really stretch cardboard, but you can move it enough that you can get a line. And you have to remember too, this is just the face of the guard, so you don't want to trace this onto the metal and then just cut it out, because then you won't have any of these return lips that we've marked out for. I'm basically just finger gauging this. It's a little bit difficult because where the mud flap was is rusty, so it's not exactly smooth, but it should be a pretty good starting point. And one thing I found too with templates, when you tape them, very rarely can you peel the tape off without just tearing the crap out of the cardboard. So I always just fold the tape over, because you never know if you're going to need this template again. And which I probably will, because I'll just mirror it to do the other side. And also, if you're a tight ass like me, you don't want to throw away too much stuff. So even if you don't need this template again, there's enough cardboard on here to be able to make a few smaller templates. So even once this job's finished, I'll be putting this cardboard back in the cardboard drawer. But that's just about me being a cheapskate. So now I'm just cutting out my line, as you can probably see. So there's our bodgy, crusty template. It actually sitting on there pretty well. So what I'm going to do now is just mark the end of that tape, which is our line, in there. Not that it really matters, but it just gives me some idea where I'm at on the cardboard. So you can see that top line is nowhere near parallel with the top of the sheet. So, you know, if I was trying to assume that was the top, well then I'd think the whole rest of this template was out of whack. So, I'm going to trim that up. And now we can put it on the steel. So on the steel I've marked, I've got to get rid of that. I've got a 10mm line, which is this fold under here, and then I've marked 15mm on this side, which is going to be the inside of the wheel arch. So when I do put this on the metal, I just need to make sure that I don't go further than that 10mm mark, because I need that excess to be able to fold this edge over. So now that I'm reasonably happy with how that cardboard fitted, let's get my pencil back out. What did I do with it? There it is. I'm just going to trace this out. Doing this in one piece is going to be a lot trickier than if I did it in multiple pieces, mainly around the flare. But because I've got a bead roller, I'm just going to do it in the one piece. If you don't have access to a bead roller, you can hammer this stuff in, but to be honest, it's not super easy. Probably just be easier to maybe make, like what we've just done, make the face in one piece. And where am I down there? And perhaps weld the lip on, or make this part the fold piece in one piece. I don't know, but I'm just basically, the suggestion was to show how I do a rust repair and how I know how far to go, so that we don't have it come back again straight away. And also, one thing that's lucky with this car is a lot of cars have this internal brace, this bit here, that not only gives the guard some support, but it's like a mud flap to stop crap coming from the front tyre up into your door hinges. And usually it comes all the way down to the bottom, and that's why they rust out, because it gets stuck in between the two pieces. But this one, let me see, that piece there, that's actually the end of it. So it's only one skin I have to repair, whereas normally if this was a Tirana guard or an HQ guard or pretty much any other guard, Camaro, you've got to repair the intersection as well. So I'm quite lucky in this regard that I don't have to fix that. Alright, so now that I've got our mark out, what I'm going to do is just measure out 15mm in a couple of spots. off here and then just draw my line, and same as on this side, just bring that 10mm line across and then I'll trim it up. Alright, well, that's a pretty decent start for our crusty little repair. So you can see where I've trimmed it off for the lip to get folded over. I've cut that corner out because you have to. So I'm going to start putting some shape into it now, but that sort of side of this repair is irrelevant. It's more about just doing the repair and cutting off more than you need to. But if you guys want me to go into bead rolling stuff more, I'm happy to. Just let me know what you want to see in the future. Alright, so been bashing away on this little bit for a little while now. As you can see, it's far from perfect, but it's getting there. It's a rough enough shape now that I can actually, when my gloves don't get caught, I can actually sit it on the panel now. So it's amazing, once you can actually get it to sit on there, you can fine tune it a lot easier. Obviously it's not fitting properly because this folded edge here is actually going to be replaced with this, so it's a little bit too narrow at the moment to go right up to its line. So once that's sanded off, this will fit on. But stupid glove. I think I'm just going to lop it off and tack it on and then try it on the car. So even though it's ugly, it's going to work. Alright, so I might have chopped this off. So my last thing that I need this piece for is just to transfer these holes. So I always just find it easier to work off this. Thing I've done differently is I've worked off that. I haven't bothered with these tunnels because they're only a 10mm bolt that holds these on, so you don't need, you know, an inch of room. So just take into account when you mark these out that it's going to be sitting on those trenches. So these holes, if you drill them out now, it's going to push the guard up too high. So use it as a guide, but then just go up an extra few mil when you drill your hole. And I've got this cleaned up and primed, this inner part, so it's just drying now. So once that's dry, I'll get this new piece tacked on and try it on the car. So that's tacked on now. I've just rolled a little bit of this lip under, just enough to hold the thing onto that bit of support. So fingers crossed it kind of fits, and we'll chuck it on the car. Okay, so the first test fit was a fail because it needed this part of the lip rolled over because it hit the sill. So that's all rolled under now, so we'll try again. Well, that fits pretty well actually for a first go. So now this needs to be welded up, and then I'll probably just paint some primer and some Kill Rust or something on it. I'm not going to do any body work on it because it's just an old work kit and it didn't shape up too badly anyway. But I guess while I'm doing the bit of work, I may as well make a new sill as well, so that can be another day. So I've just welded the excuse me, just welded the lower repair on fully. Probably do a little bit of tapping around, I guess, but it's pretty good. A little bit, needs a little bit more tapping there, but it doesn't feel too bad. So I'm just going to prime it now, inside and out, because obviously the inside's just bare metal too. So I'll chuck some primer on that, and then once it's got primer on it, I'm actually going to seam seal all inside of that and inside the back of this as well, just to clean all of I'll clean all that gunk out and seam seal it. But, well, I'll clean it all first, then I'll prime it, then I'll seam seal it. And I've still got to dig all of this gunk out of there. I'll rust convert that, and then I'll chuck it. Actually, I won't even bother putting it on the car because I'll chop the sill off next. But that's pretty much it for doing a rust repair. Even if you've only got guard with, say, a small piece of rust, but then you can buy a lower guard repair section that comes up further. Just use the whole new piece of metal. Don't even bother cutting it back, because more than likely rust will be further spread than you think. Or at least sand all of the metal off, sand all the paint off, and just double check that everything's nice and clean underneath. But I always recommend cutting off and replacing as much as you can without being ridiculous about it. Don't go full mint Monaro on it if you don't have to. So yeah, that's about it for this repair for now that I'm going to bother filming. So let me know if there's anything else you want to see in regards to this kind of stuff, because I'm always happy to take requests. Alright, cheers. Well, I figured I may as well do a quick little video of the guard just sitting back on the ute. It's not bolted on, but you can see that it sort of lines up. Didn't really line up perfectly to begin with, but it's good enough for what I need it to do. So there you go. That's about a, I don't know, 2.5 hour job, I suppose. Paint job's pretty bad. I did no body work at all, but once it's got new sills and the other sides are done, you can get another 30 years out of the old beast. Well, that's it for this episode. I hope it was okay and that it was useful to you in some way. I didn't really have a lot of jobs on that could have been more useful, like a lower quarter panel or something where you're opening up an area. But I think we sort of covered that side of it with the Tirana sill. So this was more, it's just a single skin repair, which is a lot easier, I guess, than doing a panel that has an intersection in it. But I've seen people replace guard bottoms and not cut enough off, and then they'll find, you know, a few months later the bubbles will appear above where they've repaired. So that's just what I wanted to kind of put across in this video, and that's about all I have to say. So I'll hopefully see you again next episode. Cheers, bye.